Hello, sweetie. I wish I could tell you more, but spoilers. I'm just kidding. Today we're talking about Dr. River's song. What is up, nerdlings, and welcome back to my channel! I'm your host, Danny Sanssouci, licensed cosmetologist and registered super nerd, and this is Comics and Cosmetics, the show where I talk about whatever nerdy topic I've been obsessing about that week while doing an inspired makeup look at the same time. While you watch. Before we go any further, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and ring the old bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with another one of these magnificent videos. This week, as I told you, from the future, we are talking about a subject that is probably long overdue at Comics and Cosmetics, considering there is a TARDIS here in the studio. We're talking about the infamous Professor River song.
All my walls are covered in words, and while you sleep, I mark my goals. Stand tall, think clear. Don't let them see a hint of fear. Lines and dots, zoom in, zoom out. Open your window, let them hear you shout. Right on the poles, right on the street. Always remember the future is near. Cut some cords, scratch some scars. Put on your cape and jump from the car. Open your mouth, take a deep breath. Run fast and don't stop at the edge. You can be anything you want. You can be everything you choose. Do not let it slip away. 'Cause if you never try it, you never know. You can be anything you want. You can be everything you choose. Do not let it slip away. 'Cause if you never try it, you never know. When I was a kid, my dad used to say, don't let anything stand in your way. Stand tall, think clear. I promise I'll always be here. Cut some cords, scratch some scars. Put on your cape and jump from the car. Open your mouth, take a deep breath. Run fast and don't stop at the edge. You can be anything you want. You can be everything you choose. Do not let it slip away. 'Cause if you never try it, you never know. You can be anything you want. You can be everything you choose.
Now, for you Whovians out there, and I totally am, you have heard of Dr. River's song. Even if you've watched a few of the, more recent modern episodes of Doctor Who, then you know a little bit about her at least. But it's almost impossible to talk about Dr. River's song without explaining all of Doctor Who entirely, because she's so entwined with the show, the fandom, and everything at this point. Now, Doctor Who has been around since the mid-60s. This was a show my father was a big fan of when he was a kid. I mean, by the time I was 9 years old, I could tell you what TARDIS stood for. Time and relative dimension and space. The show itself has such a rabid and passionate fan base that any new character to the series itself is a bit of a risk. You don't know if they're going to love it, if people are going to say they hated it and now the show sucks. It's always a risk when you're introducing a new character like that to such an established show. And Stephen Moffat was well aware of this when he was a writer for the show. And that's how he started out, as a writer. And he already was a Whovian. He was a fan. I mean, how could you not? Now, when the show came back on air in late 2000s, 2008, the actor playing Doctor Who was Tom Eccleston. And he did a fine job. It just, as things go, didn't work out with him. And he exited. And it was taken over by David Tennant, whose TARDIS you see here. In the fourth series of the more modern incarnation of Doctor Who, with David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, we are introduced to Dr. River Song, played by the fabulous Alex Kingston. The episodes that she first appear in, it's a two-parter, and the first one is called Silence in the Library, and the second one is called Forest of the Dead. Again, I would like to thank Herbal Hannah. In the episode titled Silence in the Library, the Doctor's with his companion, Donna Noble, and he gets a message on his psychic paper. I love the psychic paper. I really wish I had some of that. That is so cool. Like, that would come in handy so much. He gets a message on his psychic paper that someone needs help. They need help at this library. People are going missing, etc. Well, he gets there and there's nobody around. Like, literally no one. All there are these, like, kind of automaton statues that... They're statues, but they have human faces on them. I'll just show you. Like that. Creepy, right? Well, it's just these things. And they're basically, Siri. Just your giant person-shaped Echo Dot. That's all they are. And the problem that they're having is that people would go into the shadows and then not come back. Well, there's this little girl, and she keeps having nightmares about the place. And I'm just going to kind of gloss over this episode because we're not, it'll take us forever to break down every single episode. And we're here to talk about River Song. So if I just sit and I break down this whole episode and then one after that and the one after that, we're going to be here all freaking day. So if you want the full story, just go watch Doctor Who or listen to the River Song Diaries on Audible. Yeah. I love how they basically brought back radio shows. There's this little girl, and turns out she's the database, and the database is corrupted, so this group of what looks like astronauts show up, and one of them takes off her helmet to reveal this mass of beautiful curly hair, wild, unruly curly hair, and she introduces herself as Professor Riversong, Dr. Riversong, and this is her archaeological team, and they're here checking out this library. Like, it's the biggest library in the entire universe, and it's completely empty. Yet, anytime you talk to the library's Siri database, she says that over 4,000 some odd number of people have been saved. Like, then where are all these people that you saved? Like, where are they? Some of River's team goes missing, and they discover that it's these creatures that are basically shadows, and they eat whatever meat they come across. So if you go in the shadows, that's where those creatures are, and they'll just eat the meat right off your bones. Like, wow. Like, shadow piranhas. Awesome. Well, Dr. Riversong introduces herself, and she realizes that the doctor does not know who she is. And that's very confusing for her. She's like, he should know who I am. We've had lots of adventures together. We also notice that she has a notebook that looks just like the front door of the TARDIS. So David Tennant, the doctor, tries to snatch her notebook, noticing that it looks just like his TARDIS. And she snatches it away before he can grab it. And she says, spoilers. Yeah, she's got a couple of really great catchphrases. So when she realizes that he doesn't recognize her, and that this is the first time he is meeting her, notice how I said that, she's noticeably saddened. And after kind of an awkward conversation with Donna Noble, I just like saying Donna Noble. After that kind of awkward exchange she has with Donna, she explains that she is a companion of his from his personal future. So everything she knows about him is from after this moment. She also has a sonic screwdriver. And again, she won't tell the doctor when she got it, where, from who. She just says, spoilers. No spoilers. So it turns out that the only way to fix the system that has been saving all the people that got devoured. It kept saying, 4,000 people saved. And the doctor kind of connects the dots that it means stored saved, like saved on a computer. Well, the only way that they could fix this corrupted system was to have like a human connection, like a conduit, but you would die. So the doctor was going to do it, but River wouldn't let him. So she bonks him on the head, handcuffs him, far away, and she connects herself to the system. And he wakes up, and at one point, to prove to the doctor that she knew him and knew him well, she whispers in his ear when he comes to from her knocking him out. And he's like, where did you get handcuffs anyway? And she goes, spoilers. He's like, when you whispered in my ear, you said my name. No one knows my name. There's only one way I could possibly tell anyone my name. Only one person I could ever tell it to. And she's like, shh, spoilers. You'll find out, basically. it's so sad because, while they're having that final conversation before she dies, she's like, that whole time, you knew exactly how many days I had left. You knew exactly where my story ends. You knew it was here, and you never said a word about it. You gave me a journal, a diary, with the exact amount of pages I would need. You knew. It's so sad. He knew that whole time. And then she zaps herself and fixes the database. As Donna and the doctor are like, oh yay, she fixed everything, how nice, look at all the people back in the library, back to where they belong. He goes to leave her notebook and the screwdriver there, and he suddenly has this flash, this idea that the screwdriver had basically recorded her. There's only one reason why I would give her the screwdriver. I was planning ahead. So he discovers that the screwdrivers basically downloaded her, and he rushes to the database with the screwdriver, which is, on its last battery, and saves her to the database. So she's not physically alive after this point. Her consciousness is surviving in a database, but that is it. So that was essentially the end of River Song's life. So the first time the doctor, or we, the audience, meets River Song, it's the day that she dies. So right away, there is established this rule that the doctor and River Song are having the same adventures, but in almost reverse, from opposite ends. Because neither one of them really have a true, home timeline or place that they would really legitimately call home. They just travel all over the cosmos, all through space and time. So when that's your life, when you really don't have that kind of the stability that us linear three-dimensional beings are used to, I mean, that's just crazy. I really don't know where I'm going with that, other than, it makes sense for them that they would have this weird kind of timey-wimey thing going on. So by the end of the second half of that two-parter that introduced her, which was called Forest of the Dead, we see the end of River Song as we know her in her physical life. So to really understand River Song, you have to understand the doctor, which that's a feat, okay? Allow me to interject here. I figured we need to talk a little bit about the anatomy of a Time Lord. Time Lords are super advanced aliens from the planet of Gallifrey. Can you say Gallifrey? Gallifrey. Very good. Now, because of this huge war, very long time ago or very far in the future, depending on where we're at in the timeline, there's only one Time Lord left, and that's Doctor Who. That's right, the Doctor. Good job. Now, Time Lords look like humans, but they're very different. Their most noticeable difference from humans are their two hearts. Yeah, right here, two hearts. Okay. You're doing wonderful. There will be a quiz later, just FYI. Now, but Miss Danny, you said there's only one Time Lord left. Who are these people? Well, this is the Master, or Missy, the Mistress. Just depends on how they're regenerating. Okay, they snuck out too. Yeah, love the Master. I really love the Mistress too. Missy's great. And this is River Song, who we're talking about today. How did she become a Time Lord when she is the child of Amelia Pond and Rory Williams? Excellent question. Thanks for raising your hand. Well, you see, when two humans love each other very, very much, they share a special hug, okay? And if that special hug takes place inside a TARDIS, seen here, and what does TARDIS stand for? Do you remember? Time and relative dimension in space. Very good. The TARDIS's time vortex energy can get all wibbly wobbly inside the uterus, seen here, okay? And that can change the DNA to that of a Time Lord. Interesting, huh? I thought so too. Okay, you can go back to your breakdown now. Bye. So he's Doctor Who. Why is he called Doctor Who? Because we don't know his name. The only person who does is River Song. His planet, Gallifrey, was destroyed or moved to a pocket dimension. Just depends on literally everything, because that changes. But he doesn't really die because he regenerates. Now, most Time Lords are given or allowed 12 regenerations. Unless you're Doctor Who and you save Gallifrey a few times, then they're nice enough to grant you a few more. Now, the Doctor travels in a TARDIS that looks like a police public call box from the 60s. Yeah, we have cell phones now. We don't use those anymore. So I imagine people find it quite like, wow, what's that? What's a phone in a box? And he can travel anywhere in time and space in this. Why in that tiny little box? Well, I'll give you a hint. It's bigger on the inside. So we don't hear from River Song again in the show during David Tennant's tenure as the Doctor, because eventually that would change over to Matt Smith, the 11th incarnation of the Doctor. And I'm probably going to get a lot of dislikes for this. Matt Smith is my favorite. I know a lot of people really love David Tennant. He is my number 2 favorite, I'll give you that. But Matt Smith is my favorite. And it's not just because of Matt Smith and what he did for the character, how he, breathed life back into it, how he made his own little personal touches to it. But it was also for the characters and the plots and the stories that took place during his run as Doctor Who. There's no coincidence that I feel this way, because the writer that created River Song, he took over as executive producer of the show at that point. And River, as a character played by, again, the wonderful Alex Kingston, was very popular with the Whovians. And she was a character that was definitely close to Stephen Moffat's heart. So once he took over as executive producer, her character started getting more depth. It started to become more important to the storyline. It really grew. We got to really flesh out River during Matt Smith's run as the 11th Doctor. So it's in another 2-parter. It's the Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone. Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone, that we get our next River Song intrigue. So the Doctor and his new companion, Amelia Pond, are at this museum and they're checking some stuff out. Like, they find this box, and it's called a home box. He says it's like a black box in an airplane, except this one, it actually flies back to the owner or to like a home base, and it shows them security footage of what actually happened. So he's looking at this box, and he notices something rather peculiar about it. Kind of strange. And Amelia's bored, or Amy, as she likes to be called. She's bored, and she's like, you can go anywhere in time and space. Why do you want to come to a museum? Can't you just go see this stuff in person? And he's like, oh, that's mine. I did that. And she's like, oh, okay. Bragging rights. I get it. Well, he becomes focused on this home box, and he's explaining it to her. And she's like, well, what's so different about this? And he said, well, it's what's written on top. It's in Gallifreyan, the language of the Time Lords. And she's like, okay, well, then what does it say? He looks up and he says, hello, sweetie. And that is what River Song always says to him when she shows up. Hello, sweetie. So they take the home box to the TARDIS to review the security footage on it and see what exactly happened. Like, clearly someone's trying to get his attention. So he wants to find out why. You know, sometimes people do these things when they need help. There's another time, at the beginning of time, when River writes, hello, sweetie, on a cliff face. Oh, she's a hoot. I love her. So we watch the security footage, right? Oh, yeah. And in it, we see River Song. But River is dressed super fancy. Like, she looks like the classiest cat burglar ever. She's got this beautiful black gown on, and she's at this vault. And these guys are like, hey, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, I just wanted to see what was in your vault. And as she's, standing there talking to the guys that have busted her, Amy Pond and the doctor are watching this on the security footage, and she starts rattling off these numbers, and Amelia's like, what was that? It was a bunch of numbers. Like, why did she do that? And he said, they're coordinates. So he starts punching a bunch of dials on the TARDIS. That whooshes them right outside the airlock where River Song has just launched herself through. So she's floating out in space just in time for the doctor to reach out the front door of the TARDIS and pull her in. So he saves her life. So this is the second time we see her. She informs him that, one, she is currently supposed to be incarcerated in Storm Cage Containment Facility for, and I quote, killing the best man I ever knew. And we also start to notice that she seems to know her way around the TARDIS really, really well. Like, really well. Like, how did she do this? How does she know all this? I mean, sometimes it totally looks like she can drive the TARDIS better than he can. This is the point in the Doctor's history where we start really learning the depth of River Song and just how important she is to the Doctor Who story, to Doctor Who, and his companions. Now buckle up, because this is where it gets confusing and weird. During the next several episodes, like the Pandorica Opens, the Big Bang, the Impossible Astronaut, we start learning more and more about River Song and her exact relationship to the Doctor. So, in the previous episodes, we learn that River is actually the Doctor's wife. I know. Like, how do you maintain that kind of committed relationship over 12 to 13 lifetimes? It's just, no idea. So we learn that she's the Doctor's wife, but he doesn't really know much about her. We know that, he shows up and breaks her out of prison frequently. He really likes taking her out for her birthday. And here's where it gets wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, wonkety donkety. That last one I made up. I know you couldn't tell. Amelia Pond marries Rory Williams. So she marries this Rory Williams, right? Okay. Well, they end up consummating their marriage on the TARDIS. Whoopsie doodles. And, she says she's pregnant, and then the Doctor's like, did you say you were pregnant? She's like, no, I think it was just it was a false alarm, etc. Well, he does a scan of her with the TARDIS, and the TARDIS can't decide if she's pregnant or not. It says positive, negative, positive, negative. Like, it's out of sync. It can't settle on it. Unbeknownst to us, Amy gets kidnapped by this dubious, villainous enterprise known as the Silence. They have these scary creatures that look like a cross between gray aliens and Slender Man. And they are immune to memory. So that means you see them, but as soon as you look away, you don't remember seeing them. And they're all over human history, messing with things, trying to control us and everything. Well, this group kind of built this religious, militaristic, almost government around them. And they believe that Amy's baby can be used as a weapon against the Doctor. So they kidnap her and they replace her on his TARDIS with something called a ganger. A ganger is a doppelganger made of this synthetic skin stuff known simply as flesh. So she's been kidnapped and replaced with this ganger, and everyone but the Doctor falls for it. Well, the Doctor kind of falls for it for a bit. So they're just kind of living their lives and everything. And then one day, Amy all of a sudden doubles over in pain, grabbing her abdomen. She's like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? And then Rory's like, oh my God, something's wrong with her. What's happening? And the Doctor tells him, well, she's in labor. They're like, labor? Well, Amy, this flesh stuff, has a psychic connection, some kind of weird cerebral Wi-Fi. So they're actually talking to Amy. It's being broadcast to this flesh ganger, but she's held captive by this woman, Madame Kavarian. The Doctor's trying to talk her through labor while Amy is giving birth in this facility known as Demon Head. Amy gives birth, and now Rory, who's also been, we discover, replaced by the flesh ganger, and the Doctor are trying to find her and save her and the baby. So Rory shows up in his Roman centurion garb. That's a story for another time. And he asks River Song if they've met yet, because remember, everything's out of sync. Like, have we met yet? And she sees him, knows exactly who he is, and she's like, yes, we have. He says, the doctor and I, we need your help. My wife's been kidnapped, and we need you to help us get her and our baby. And she explains that she had just gotten back. She just returned. The doctor had taken her ice skating on the Thames in 1843 and even got Stevie Wonder to sing to her. And he's like, how would he do something like that? And, River's like, well, Stevie didn't know it was 1843. I think it was funny. So she signs on to help, and she says that, today is the day. And he's like, the day for what? She's like, this is when the doctor finds out who I really am. Oh, here we go. And also, around the same time, this gets so confusing. Like, the order in which these things happen, you can't blame me if I mess up. So they go to rescue Amy Pond. They find where she is. And there she is with the baby. And they've got all this help because, the doctor has called in all his favors. He's got all his friends and companions from all over time and space. They're helping. The Sondarin. God, I love him. Sprax. I love Sprax. So while they're like, oh, yay, we're winning. And then come to find out, no, to Amy's horror, as she's holding her baby, Melody, her daughter, Melody Pond, the baby dissolves in her hands. So the baby had already been switched out. That was a flesh ganger of her baby, Melody Pond. Oh my God, it's so sad. You really feel for her. So they knew that they were coming. They knew that this was going to happen, and it's just devastating. The doctor had brought out this, they call it a cot, but it's a cradle, a baby cradle. And he's, carved names on it in Gallifreyan, her name. He tells him it was his cradle. And River shows up, and Amy's devastated, and she's trying to calm her down, and she's trying to tell her everything's going to be okay. She's like, no, it's not. My baby's gone. Well, this soldier, this girl who was she was one of the forest people, the Gamma Forests, a girl from the Gamma Forests. She was a big fan of the doctor since he came and saved her once on her planet. And River explains that the word doctor means warrior and hero. Well, this girl from the Gamma Forests had made a prayer leaf for Amy's baby, Melody, and she sewed the baby's name onto the leaf. Well, River is looking at the crib and the prayer leaf, and she said, just read it. And they're like, we can't. And she says, well, it takes a minute sometimes for the TARDIS matrix, because the TARDIS, when you're absorbed in the TARDIS energy, it extends out beyond the TARDIS itself, and you get super fun perks like being able to translate and read any language ever, everywhere. So she's telling them, just focus, just read this, it'll come into focus. You just got to let the TARDIS matrix work. And she explains to them that the forest people didn't have a word for pond because the only body of water that they had around was the river. So Amelia turns the prayer leaf over and over in her hands, and slowly the words start to come together, and it says River Song. So her name in the forest people's language translated from Melody Pond to River Song. Didn't that just get you? So sweet. The doctor and River reassure them that, your baby is going to be fine because River's right there. And, the moment when the doctor, because the doctor, obviously catches on faster than the mere mortals do. And when he realizes that his wife, his future wife, is his companion's and best friend's daughter. He's like, ooh. But yeah, what a trip to find out that your kid is going to one day marry your best friend. I don't know how I'd feel about that. There was this problem. And the problem was that River was kidnapped by those silence people. Still was, still happened. And trained to be an assassin, to be a weapon to kill the doctor. Like, they force-fed her this hate for him constantly. Well, they created this suit, this kind of autonomous suit, weapon suit, that looked like a friggin' astronaut suit. And in one episode, they meet this little girl who's in this suit, and she's scared, and she's having all these nightmares, and she wants help, and she had ripped herself out of the suit, and the suit could move on its own. Of course, it would freak this kid out. So they had met her, and they had saved her. They just didn't realize it was River. I don't even think River knew that it was River. But they rescue her from the silence, and she survives for a few months on the streets of New York until she contracts this disease, and it kills her. And, she's in this alley, and this lady comes up to her, and she's like, oh my God, are you okay? She's like, no, I'm dying, but it's fine. I can fix it. And then you see her hands start to glow, like with the regeneration energy that Doctor Who's does. So she regenerates, and she regenerates into a toddler that actually gets adopted. Now here is where it gets crazy. Yeah, I said here is where it gets crazy, like it wasn't getting crazy already. Okay? In Let's Kill Hitler, we find out that Melody, she gets taken to an orphanage, like the same home that Rory and Amelia were in when they were kids. So they end up all growing up together. And it's funny because they show Rory and Amelia growing up with this young girl named Melody. And she's a bit of a bad girl. She's trouble, which wouldn't expect anything less from our lovely, lovely River. Like, she likes to steal cars. She likes to break into places. She's always in trouble with the cops. She's always giving her schoolmasters, like, the business. And she's always, it's like she's kind of jealous of the doctor, or jealous of Amy's relationship with the doctor. Or it's probably, got something to do with her programming from the silence to, hate the doctor. She's always ripping on him, like, they'll ask questions in school, and she's like, they died because the doctor didn't show up to save them, of course. And, she gets in trouble by her teacher for making up stories. But we all know the truth, Mel's. We know. It just shows this montage of her whole life of just being a shithead, but a good friend at the same time. If it wasn't for Mel's, Rory and Amy wouldn't have gotten together. Like, she had to point it out to Amelia that Rory had pretty much been there the whole time for her. And she just kind of was like, blowing him off. Good for you, Mel's. Did your good deed. But at one point, Rory and Amelia are trying to contact the doctor and trying to translate this lovely crop circle, and he shows up, and also here comes Mel's blasting through with a car she's stolen, and she holds the doctor at gunpoint and insists that he take her with him so that she can escape the police. And she's like, oh, we've got a time machine, let's go kill Hitler. So they go back in time to go find Hitler, and she gets wounded. She gets shot in the gut, and that's when she starts to regenerate. They're like, uh-oh, we know who she is. And the doctor's like, wait, you named your daughter after herself? So they named their daughter after their best friend, but their best friend happened to be their daughter. Like, just get out of that thought process, okay? Don't stay there too long. You'll get lost. So she regenerates into what we know as River Song. But that's her first time ever seeing herself like that. And the rest of the group is just like blown away. Well, of course, she's just a teenager and she's been programmed to kill the doctor. So she's a bit of a and immediately tries to kill the doctor. Well, she poisons the doctor with poison lipstick. And it's this specific type of poison that it stops his regeneration process, so it really legitimately kills him. Awesome. Good job, River. But she kind of realizes what she's done and how important this man ends up being to her. So she runs over and she actually donates several of her regenerations to save his life. Like, that's love, man. I just gave up several lifetimes for you. So after she does that, it kind of knocks her out for a while, and he takes her to the best hospital in the universe. But before he leaves, he gifts her with the TARDIS notebook with the exact amount of pages for all their adventures. It's kind of bittersweet, right? She wakes up and decides to be a better person, to ignore this programming that they have given her, and chooses to go to school for archaeology, which she does. And the reason for that specific choice, so she can keep an eye on the doctor, duh. And she does, all over space and time. Well, there was still that pesky problem with the programming. The Silence still wanted him dead. And remember, they had built that stupid astronaut suit that could kind of move on its own and take over. So eventually, the Silence re-kidnap River. Okay? And all of the Doctor's group, like the Doctor, Rory, Amelia, and a different River from a different point in her timeline, all get these invitations on a TARDIS blue stationery. And it says to meet at Lake Silencio in Utah. So they meet there. They meet at Lake Silencio, and they're having this lovely picnic. And while they're having this picnic, the impossible astronaut comes out of the water. Oh, yeah. And the Doctor goes over and talks with it. And they're like, oh, God, why did he go to talk to him? Why is he over there so long? And the astronaut raises an arm and kills the Doctor. Like, right in the middle of his regeneration process. Kills him right there. Well, that was not okay by River Song standards, because it turns out that astronaut was River Song. So she decides, I'm going to go back, do it again. You know, this is after this guy shows up and said he got an invitation too, and he was told to meet right here at this time and bring a can of gas to burn the Doctor's body, because, you know, he's a Time Lord. You can't let anyone get a hold of Time Lord DNA. Well, the second time around that it happens, we see it from the Doctor's perspective. Because before, we're all in the background with River and Amy and Rory. Well, now we're seeing it from the Doctor's perspective, and we see that it is River. And he tells her, it's like, you have to do it. She's like, I don't want to, I can't, the system's running by itself. I don't want to, I can't kill you. And he tells her, this is a fixed point in time. You can't mess with it. And she's like, it can be rewritten. He's like, did you hear what I said? It's a fixed point in time. So the glove raises, and, you see a bunch of flashing, it just starts blasting, and it's blasting everywhere. And then all of a sudden it just stops, and he opens his eyes and looks, and he goes, what happened? And she's like, I guess I depleted my energy reserves. The doctor freaks out. He's like, you can't do that. It's a fixed point in time. And then all of a sudden, everything turns white. Well, it like broke time. It made it to where all time was happening at the same time. All the time. So, of course, only the doctor and River remember what really happened because they're the ones who caused it. So she helps them get rid of Madame Varian, and they fix all of time by getting married. So they get married and he whispers to her his name. But what we don't see is that he also whispers to her his plan, okay? Now everyone else thinks he's just going to go back and let River kill him and he's going to be dead. No. He got this machine, but they're like these, he gets these kind of time cops, and they roll around in a shape-shifting robot, and he got them to shape-shift into him, and that is who he sent to Lake Silencio that day. And what's funny about these space cops is they've been out chasing River. They've been trying to arrest her. Like in Let's Kill Hitler, they were there in the form of her mother, Amy Pond, trying to like erase her from history and imprison her for killing the doctor, which she hadn't done yet. So they needed everyone to believe that he was dead so they would, knock their crap off and leave him the hell alone. So they get the shape-shifting robot thing. Looks like the doctor. It shows up to Lake Silencio, and the impossible astronaut comes out, i.e. River Song, and it shoots him. And as far as anyone else is concerned, the doctor's dead. Now, it took a while before River could tell her parents the truth, but she does. And the doctor tells them all. He shows back up and all is well. But River does have to go to prison for like 12,000 lifetimes for killing him to keep up the pretense that she did kill him, that he's dead. Now, unfortunately, Rory and Amy do get stuck back in time. Because the damn weeping angels, to me, they're the scariest of the Doctor Who villains. And I know they were made out of budget necessities, kind of like Star Trek's transporter. Like, they move and they'll capture you, but they only move when you're not looking. It's kind of like the reasons people are scared of the dark and stuff. It's what you don't see that freaks you out so much. So Rory and Amy actually get to live out their lives back then. And Amelia becomes a writer. She writes the Melody Malone series. It's pretty great. That's one of River's pseudonyms. She goes by many names. And it's sad. We see their gravestones, but they had a full life together and they were happy, and they wanted the Doctor to know that. One of the last times we see River is during the Peter Capaldi era as the Doctor, the 12th incarnation of the Doctor. I really liked Peter Capaldi. I liked him. I thought he was fun. He definitely made it his own. In the episode known as The Husbands of River Song, Peter Capaldi's meets River. Well, it was the first time that she had ever met this incarnation of the Doctor. And remember the rule. The rule really gets driven home to us way before this, though. During Matt Smith's tenure. It was so sad. Like, he drops her off back at prison, and she says, "Aren't you forgetting something?" And he says, "I don't think so." And she grabs him and kisses him. And he goes, that was. And she goes, "Wait, are you saying we've never done that before?" And he's like, "Well, there's a first time for everything." And you see her immediately get sad. Because remember, if it's the first time for him, it's the last time for her. So she knew right then and there, that was the last time she'd ever kiss him. So she sees Peter Capaldi, and Peter realizes she doesn't know who he is. And it makes him sad. And he tries giving her hints for a while, but she's just not catching on to it. Not only does he realize that she doesn't recognize him, but it's kind of like giving him a peek hole into the shit she gets into when he's not around. So she had gotten the doctor to help her steal this diamond. And this man known as, he discovers what she gets up to when he's not around, that she's had other spouses. The current one apparently has a diamond she wants in his skull. And also that not only does River truly, truly love him, but she genuinely doesn't believe that he loves her back. Like, these people are like kidnapping her and stuff. They're gonna lock her up, and they're saying the doctor will show up. He always shows up. He always comes for her. Aren't you the consort of the doctor? And she basically says, he doesn't give a shit about me. He's not going to be here. And then she slowly turns and looks at Peter Capaldi, and he looks at her and says, hello, sweetie. Like, and you've also got the In the Name of the Doctor one, where we see the doctor's tomb, like the TARDIS gets huge, like the bigger on the inside becomes the outside. It's like crazy. But she's just some kind of projection. She's just this consciousness. Like Madame Vastra had done what she calls a conference call, where it's a psychic link between all these people, specific people that she invited. And Clara was one of them. He was the doctor's new companion after Amy and Rory. After she finished the conference call, she could still hear and see River. So she thought, and so did River, that they were the only ones who could. And, River opens up the doctor's tomb by whispering his name. And, the problem was the doctor's time stream was all messed up and it was degrading. And someone needed to jump into it to fix it. Or someone needed to go fix it. Clara, she jumps into the time stream, and the doctor thinks, well, she's been torn apart. She's been torn apart. I can't get to her. And River keeps telling him that she's not been torn apart. She's in there. You can still save her. She's like, why won't you listen? Why? I wish you could hear me. And he turns around and looks directly at her and says, I always see you. I always hear you. And it's just like, oh, it just breaks your heart. Like, she's always with him, and he lets her know just how much he loves her. So I found it kind of confusing during the Husbands of River Song episode, where she's saying how much she loves him, and the doctor seems surprised by it. But she says, he doesn't give a damn about her. He only cares about himself. And I'm like, well, he's already seen that that's not true. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff, okay? That's what it is. So, drama ensues, and they end up crash landing. So they end up crash landing on this planet called Darillium. And this is where, he gives her the sonic screwdriver that she had in silence in the library in the Forest of the Dead. This is also where they, spent their last night together, or what the doctor told her would be his last night with her. And he did something pretty freaking amazing that I think all men should pay attention to if you have the ability to, fudge with time. He decides that he's going to use this opportunity to give her the perfect date, and then informs her that the nights on Darillium last 24 years. So up until this point, with the River Song adventures, I was like, it's this tragic love story. Like, they really do love each other, but they only get these brief moments, and it's always out of sync. They're always comparing notes. Like, they pull out their notebooks and, have we done Jim the Fish? Oh, Jim the Fish! Love doing karaoke with Jim the Fish. Okay. Have we been to Babylon? No. Okay. Like, they're always comparing notes, so they have to spend all this time already to kind of catch up to where they are. And by the time they do, the adventure's over and it's time to move on to something else. The other one's got to run, or the other one's got to go back to prison. It's sad. So it's really sweet that this last night he has with her lasts 24 years. And they actually get to share somewhat of a life together. And I think that's just beautiful. Now, that's pretty much the last we get of River Song in live action. There are some audio shows. You can check out the River Song Diaries on Audible, and that really fleshes out her life, specifically her. Like, what she does when the doctor's not around, what all she went through to get her degree. She gets up to some stuff. But what I really love about River Song is that she's highly intelligent, very educated, but she's still kind of a shit. Like, yeah, she was kind of programmed to be the sociopath, but she doesn't let that get her down. She's very funny. I think she's very seductive. I love the way she flirts. Spoilers. Stop it. I love her. She's fun. She's funny. She's ambitious. She's just energetic. And she's always got some scheme going on. But as badass and tough and scheming as she is, she has a really, really big hearts, I should say, since, the time vortex of the TARDIS changed her in utero from human to Time Lord. Amy was worried she'd have a giant time head, but she just seems like a really fun, spontaneous person, but still, like, she gave up 1,200 lifetimes just to make sure that the doctor survived and that her parents lived. She gave that up. She knew she didn't actually kill the doctor. She knew she just shut down a robot, but she gave that up just so that they were safe. Now, when the doctor erased himself from all databases everywhere ever, they lost the evidence they had to, charge her with this crime, so she had to be released. Yay, River. But just the fact that she willingly gave that up, knowing she was innocent, but still was like, nope, yep, I did it. I killed him. And I mean, honestly, she had a pretty cushy life in prison anyway, since he would randomly show up all the time and take her fun places like ice skating with Stevie Wonder. Technically, Stevie didn't ice skate, he just sang. But I love Doctor Who. I love River Song. And I think it would be super, super, super cool if we could get like an entire live action series of just Alex Kingston playing River Song. I think that would be awesome. And given the fact that they're time travelers, it really doesn't matter if she's dead, because she's all over the place. Her timeline could really it could be endless, because it doesn't go in a straight line. It's wibbly wobbly, one might say, with the timey and the wimey. Well, that is all I have for you today on Professor River Song. I hope you enjoyed it. It was very difficult to do because it goes like this. If you don't believe me, or if you'd like more information, then watch Doctor Who. Okay? Listen to the River Song Diaries on Audible. But until you try to piece this all together yourself, please don't come for me. I'll cry. I'll cry. Anyway, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell. Find us on all the socials. We're literally everywhere. We have comics and cosmetics for every single social media platform. And we even have merch. So if you want to support the channel, please check out our merch store. And please check out our Patreon. We got 3 different tiers that all come with their own perks, behind the scenes, tutorials, and merch as well. That'll do it for me today on River Song and my River Song look. It's supposed to remind you of TARDIS energy. Kind of reminds me, I'm certainly loving the crazy wild curly hair. That's like my favorite part. But until then, nerdlings, have an awesome and wizard day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.